Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Hurry Up. I'm your host, Adam. Let's get into this. So, the Giants hired Shane Bowen as their new defensive coordinator. Thankfully, the search is over, Giant fans. They got a guy. Now, some people are happy about it. Some people are not happy about it. At the end of the day, they got a guy who has defensive coordinating experience. I know that doesn't mean much to some people, but overall, that's a big, big thing. When you want a person to come into your job, sometimes taking a risk, especially with what's on the line for Brian Dable, is not necessarily the way you want to go. And I know a lot of people say, oh, they didn't want to come here because of Brian Dable this, Brian Dable that. Guess what? He's gotten all the hires filled. He's got a running backs coach. He had special teams coordinator. He's got the defensive coordinator now. The offensive coordinator is sticking around. Mike Kafka, whether we like it or not. Who knows what that means? I like it for the Giants, even though they don't like each other. Maybe they can mend fences. Maybe this means that they might draft a young quarterback to help bolster his resume. Because you think about it like this, if Mike Kafka can get a new quarterback in here, that people are going to look at that and say, hey, you helped this young kid. Maybe you can help our guy. So Giants defensive coordinator is done. Good. Check that box. We can move on. As for some of the rumors coming out of the Senior Bowl, the Giants getting a quote-unquote veteran quarterback to, compete with Daniel Jones. One, the word compete is in there. That's what I like. But two, no viable option is coming in here. Because I'll tell you why. Daniel Jones is soft mentally. And he's soft emotionally. And if you bring in a guy to compete for his job, me personally, I'm going to be rooting for that guy, whoever that guy is, over Daniel Jones, because I've seen enough of him. Two, what guy are you going to bring in here that's going to excite the fan base to be like, oh, this guy could be possibly the future going forward? There's not many guys out there. Gardner Minshew, people keep telling me about. Well, guess what? He went to the Pro Bowl. How? I have no idea. The guy had 15 touchdowns. But he went to the Pro Bowl somehow, by some way. He went there, right? So if he's shopping around, he's going to be like, I'm a Pro Bowl quarterback. Whether or not people want to agree with it, that's on his resume. And that might increase his money. Jacoby Brissett, why would he want to come here? To know that he's got to keep this. It's not like he has Sam Howell in front of him. He's got Daniel Jones behind him. He's got Daniel Jones lurking over him. Like, what are we going to do? And we know Jacoby Brissett's going to be a better player and probably give the Giants a better chance to win than maybe, let's say, possibly Daniel Jones. So I don't see them doing much. I think possibly Tyrod Taylor will come back. Depends on what the market value is for him. But I don't want to see a guy like a Ryan Tannehill. And this doesn't preclude the Giants from drafting a quarterback. Because here's the thing. Here's what people are not focusing on. I think people are focusing too strictly on 2024. Drafting a quarterback signals two things for me in my eyes. And you can agree or disagree. One, it signals the end of an era that we got. And two, it signals the rebuild. And what a rebuild allows you to do, whether people like it or not, it signals to the coach, it signals to the fans, and it signals to the owner, hey, we're going to rebuild this the right way. And Joe Schoen has alluded to doing that correctly. So correctly would be getting a quarterback. Not that I don't like Dunze or Neighbors or Harrison Jr. To me, those are moves that if we already had, like, for example, if the Giants had Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow or somebody already in place that they knew, like, oh, man. Like, look at the Bengals did. They drafted Joe Burrow. They're like, oh man, this guy is good. They went in, they decided instead of going off the line, they went with Jamar Chase. And look where that got them, right? Because they had a quarterback in place. I think it's more important to get and if you don't like the quarterbacks in this draft, I don't necessarily want a receiver at 6. I want an edge rusher. If not, trade down a couple picks and take Penix Jr. if you think it's a reach at 6. I don't care. To me, I don't really care about a reach because at the end of the day, my legacy is if this guy holds up a Lombardi for me and ends up being what we want him to be. Like, look at Eli Manning. I go back to 2004. They made a trade. Everyone was up in arms about making the trade, moving up and taking this guy, and they could have taken Gallery, or they could have taken Roethlisberger, they could have taken Rivers and kept him. No, they took Eli Manning, who pouted and shouted to get there, and then guess what? The next year, what they did was they were like, all right, 2005, we have a quarterback, we're going to bring in a receiver, we're going to bring a linebacker, we already have Jeremy Shockey here, we have Tiki Barber, we already have some weapons, we're going to kind of fortify the offensive line because they already had a guy in there. So if they do trade up and give up assets, they will be able to make moves in 2025, where that, to me, is the sweet spot for the Giants, because if you bring in a young guy, because you think of it like this, Giants have to pay a lot of players. And Daniel Jones' money is already on the books. Next year it comes off the books. But wouldn't you want a nice young guy that you can mold that doesn't have all the flaws that Daniel has, and to keep building this team so by the time 2025 happens, you can now have exponential amount of money with a young quarterback who's gotten some experience, who you have some upside with. If you look at it like Jalen Hurts, for example, they got him even though they had Carson Wentz. the GM went against the grain and still drafted Jalen Hurst, regardless of what the coach said, regardless of what the owner said. They kind of clashed, and look where they have. They still have their guy. They built the team. They brought in other players. So I look at it like that. I look at the Giants getting a guy in here. At the worst case scenario, they get a guy like Michael Pratt. Best case scenario is they get like a Drake May, maybe a Caleb Williams. But I think they're going to bring in. To me, it's like this. I look at it like this. They bring in a young veteran, like a Sam Darnold. That to me could be a move where you could be like, all right, in 2025, we have a cheap option here, quarterback. We can draft a guy or bring a guy up. I think you need to bring somebody in the pipeline with talent. Don't draft. Sam Howell had talent. He failed miserably, but the reason why you can move on from him is he's a fifth round pick. Now we don't know what Sam Howell is going to be. He's only had 1 year of experience, and we tend to smash guys out of the way when they stink quickly, but we hold on to booty ass quarterbacks because they're first round picks where we like them or they're hard workers. It really depends on the narrative that you're talking about. So for me, I'm looking at it like this. I don't think Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll can be that naive and that dumb to say, well, we don't need a quarterback. We're just going to bring in Sam Darnold, because regardless of if they win or not with that new quarterback, they're all going to be fired if it doesn't go well. You can't have an 8-win season, miss the playoffs, and then expect me to bring you back. And you have Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, and Tommy DeVito on your roster. If you had Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, Tommy DeVito, and let's say J.D. McCarthy, Michael Pratt, Spencer Rattler, a guy that, and why do I say those guys? Because while they're not the creme de la creme, those are guys, and the Giants don't have time to develop guys, but they have a lot of traits. Like Michael Pratt needs to work on his footwork. Spencer Rattler just needs to be refined a bit. He to me is more of what I think the Giants will do at the Senior Bowl. Is a guy like if him and Penix Jr. fall, because Penix is now apparently the people are saying he's going undrafted, which is asinine to think this guy could throw for 4,000 yards, and you're going to say, well, we're not going to draft him. Is that the faux pas on the entire league's part? And that's why they're scouting. We're not the perfect scouts, and nor in the NFL. But I just don't think, for me, the Giants are going to be that naive. Plus, they don't have that much money. So you want them to go get big free agents like a edge rusher or a guard or something like that along those lines. And then you're going to say, well, now we're going to put, $10 or $15 million into a backup quarterback for 2 years. And then what? Now you've got 23% of your cap's already eaten by one player. Now you're going to have two players eating up a majority of your cap. I don't think when you can do the same thing by drafting a guy in the second round if you don't want to take a guy at 6, even though I think you take the guy at 6 to have that 5th-year option, to have that flexibility. So if he does think you can get out of it or whatnot, I just think that's the reason why you draft a guy in the first round. To have that financial flexibility, because other than that, you'll probably have to extend the cap quicker. But anyways, those are my thoughts. I think the defensive coordinator is going to be fine for the Giants. The Titans' defense has been pretty good. Not great, but pretty good, good enough. Better statistically than the Giants' defense has been. And I think it's a good hire, and I hope the Giants can put it together and get a young roster in here and go. It's draft season, it's lying season, it's smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Well, one thing I will say is this: there's a lot of talk about the quarterback position and who's going to be our starter. When you have to re-emphasize that a guy is going to be your starter, doesn't mean you have a beacon of hope. When you have to keep building a guy, if you look across the league, is Jim Harbaugh coming out every 5 minutes going, oh, Justin Herbert's our starter, Justin Herbert's our starter, Justin Herbert's our starter? No. One, because he just got the job, but two, you already know that. That's already implied by what he's already done. It's not, you can't say that about Daniel, who's had 4 out of 5 bad seasons in his career. His first year, rookie year, had his ups and downs. His middle 2 seasons were atrocious. The year that Daboll comes in, he wasn't even that great of a quarterback. He had a decent year, and then last year was absolutely dog shit before his injury. And I don't care about it. That's what you have to evaluate people on. And yeah, he got injured, but now it might be time to move on. But we'll see what happens. I didn't want to make this about the quarterback. I just wanted to address some of the rumors, tell you about the fact that they got a defensive coordinator. But lastly, I'll say the Super Bowl is this weekend. I have Kansas City in the game. Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes are leading their teams respectively. They had the opening ceremonies or opening festivities on Monday. They'll probably have some more media sessions today going forward. And then there'll be practice probably Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday, and then of course the big games on Sunday. Who I predict the Kansas City Chiefs will be back. Man, we're talking about a dynasty. He's the best quarterback of the modern era. Well, the new modern era right now, the modern era that has seen the guys like Elway and Rodgers and a lot of those guys are out of the league right now. So the new head of the league is Mahomes. He's everywhere. Subway, State Farm, you name it, he's there. That's what your franchise guy does, and he's an elevator. So, and it was funny. He made a joke about getting a haircut because Travis Kelce said he's more famous than Patrick Mahomes, and he goes, "Well, when I go get a haircut on the weekend, I'll say, can I get a Travis Kelce, and see where that gets me." So that was kind of funny. It's going to be a fun game. I'm rooting for Steve Spagnuolo. We'll see what he can do with that defense. And Kansas City, it's just hard. It's just hard to bet against them. Every time you do, somehow they end up in this position. So good luck to those teams. We'll be back. I think Wednesday we have a show. We're going to do a little bit of an NFC East trivia show on Wednesday. And then Premium Takes is going to be a full-blown Super Bowl special. It's going to be trivia. Probably going to bring on some guests and just talk about the game, off-season musings that are going on, and then kind of prepare you guys for what's to come in the off-season. But hope you enjoyed this. I know it's a little long. I just wanted to make a video. Thanks for sticking with me. If you made it this far, like, subscribe. This has been another edition of The Hurry Up. I'm your host, Adam. Have a good one.